What's happened in Moses Lake? This is Rick, your host on the Rixican Show. Our tech guy, Donnie Parker, and we have a guest, Joey Kriete, with us today. Um, to get started, life is good. The weather's good. Possible rain today? Is that kind of what I see in the weather?
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit more about your boat and paddle really quick.
Oh yeah. So I'm working on a project called Moses Lake Sail and Paddle, and we're just
Sail and paddle.
sail and paddle because paddle represents kayaking, paddleboarding. But we're just trying to get people out on the water, and so we're working with some government departments and some corporations in Grant County that are trying to help facilitate things to do because they're telling me they're like, we can't keep our employees. You know, they're coming from the city, and there's like,
Yeah,
they need stuff for their kids to do. They need stuff for them to do, whether they're family or bachelor.
and so they leave town.
Yeah, so they're having trouble, and so um, I always wanted to have like I hate to call it aquatics program, but a lake program where we get teach people sailing lessons. So my background was I grew up in Orange County. I taught a whole bunch of boating lessons in Newport Harbor, Newport Beach, California. The sailing, rowing, canoeing, advanced sailing, and then as a Sea Scout, every summer we would cruise the Channel Islands. And I was like, what a great, neat experience for just a average family to do, because it's not like my dad came for money, but to get on the water and experience, you know, our taste. That was like, in some ways it was life changing for me. In scouts, I couldn't remember my knots. In the sailing program, it was like you had to know them, or you could be a potential risk, you know, to those with you. When the wind's blowing 100 miles an hour, you had to kind of have some experience, and you know, people had to depend on you. And I've been out on the ocean when it gets ugly, and I remember being a young kid in a storm, and we pulled anchor. We're blowing out to sea, little cove on Santa Cruz Island called Little Scorpion Bay, and that little scorpion bit, and we blew out to sea. And I remember this kid was, I was like 15. This kid was 18 years old.
Oh, I remember the story.
And he just took command. Average guy, little chubby, whatever, but he took command. He's like, you two, get the anchor. He started just calling shots. And I remember being like 15, just so impressed that when the crap hit the fan, he stood tall. And he was like, he was a man, you know, like what I think many of us inspired to be. But until you know, touch the flames, the fire, you don't know
Yeah,
what that's like. But he just commanded and did what needed to be done. The skipper was on the tiller. This 18-year-old was calling shots, and I was like new to sailing and boating
oh,
at the
they said
time.
nude for a second.
I was nude. I felt nude because I was like, you know,
Yeah,
I had no clothes in the moment. I was young and inexperienced. You know, all I could do was help out, but the terminology was new.
yeah,
What to do, but we pulled the anchor up, and the anchor's kind of skipping on the water, which is incredible. But I mean, when it's blowing 80 miles an hour, you know, it was crazy. But
yeah.
I was always impressed by that.
And so now you get to be that guy to kids in this area.
Hopefully, when the crap hits the fan, I can be that guy that's like, you know, calm, collected in the chaos. Occasionally, I'd see it in the military. I'm sure in the sheriff's department, you know, you get these new recruits, whatever, but there's some that just stand tall when in the chaos. They thrive in it. It's kind of a neat thing.
Before we get too far, I just want to say, everybody, if you're having issues with your vehicle, Brothers Automotive, Moses Lake, Washington, 7619744, one of the best automotive repair facilities in the area, and least expensive. I think most places are $130 to $200 an hour. Brothers Automotive is charging somewhere around $100 an hour. And as Rick knows, they'll even come and pick up your car if need be to make it easy for you. So brakes, suspension, engine swaps, you name it. Brothers Automotive, 7619744. Again, Brothers Automotive, 761-9744. Back to you.
Anyway, so the whole lake program is just get people on the water, teach them how to sail. Not like kayaking and stuff's that difficult, but we can get them on the water, get them fishing and paddling around in groups and create a community. Will that turn into sailboat racing? Will that turn into clubs? I don't know. We'll see how it grows and what the community demands. But I was focused on Moses Lake, but the gal I'm working with, she's like, Warden's watching us. These guys are watching us. The whole county's watching us, and they're gonna probably want to send their kids
Yeah.
to these summer camps as well.
Speak of county.
County?
I said, speak of county, we have a guest today.
Yeah. So, Joey Kriete, Joey, what do you like?
I've been called worse than either one of those, but yeah.
Son of a gun.
Joey, it's all fine. It's all good.
So,
Over my years, I think it's kind of developed into Joey. That's what I was known as I was growing up.
All right.
It's just Joey, and I kind of used to separate when people would meet me, if they knew me by Joe, that was how they knew me through my professional side of my life.
yeah.
If you knew me as Joey, that you knew me for many years, or you knew me my
Joey it is.
So, yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I guess it's been many years now.
Yeah, so qualifies.
So when I met Brother Kriete, Joey Kriete today, the first thing I asked him, I go, have you seen the video? And he's kind of like, where are you going with this? And like, so on the news recently, there was a court case and Afro Man who sings some
Yeah.
interesting songs about illicit material, right?
Yeah.
Smoke two joints before I smoke. Is that the one? No, that's
it's
a different one. But anyway, he has some music about that. But anyway, he recently got raided by the
He
authorities.
does a song, and then I got high, and then I got high.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they raided his house. I guess they didn't find anything, but he has cameras in his house, and so he made a video of this donut-loving officer double taking some lemon pound cake, and then he has a video of him going to his refrigerator and opening it up. So he made a song about that. His grandma's a slice of lemon pound, putting his Glock down for the kid, like so he made a video about it. It's kind of funny, but that's been kind of on the news recently. And so my question is, does the Moses Lake chief like lemon pound cake?
I think Dave probably can beat some up without
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't get into a pound cake eating contest with him.
I see you dodging the question. All right, Mr. Sands, shots fired.
Shots fired.
He would have beat me to it if I wouldn't have done it.
Does Moses Lake Police Department or the Sheriff's Department, which one likes pound cake more?
I think last time we asked him about a push-up contest, wasn't it?
Arm wrestling.
Arm wrestling,
Something,
Oh, Dave and I, we bust each other pretty good. We've been friends for 30 plus years, so we have a good time. He's great. Really.
Yeah.
Great.
When you guys played cops and robbers together, who was who? Oh, yeah. You played cops and cops, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Cops and
cops.
Federal government, local government. Authority trumps yours. Oh, let's see here. So, if I was sheriff, what type of challenges or surprises might I see stepping into it? I think our society, we kind of think that we can do things better. I notice when I'm a worker, I always look up and I'm like, I can run this thing better than they can. And that's just kind of a perceived thought that, people have. I think it's normal that, the guys on the ground don't always see what happens behind the scenes. So if I was sheriff today, what kind of challenges or surprises would I see?
Yeah, so a lot of the challenges, Rick, you kind of hit it on the head. I lived that. I mean, I'm now in my 33rd year at the sheriff's office, and I've worked in just about every role of the office. I've been a patrol deputy, I've been a detective, a sergeant, I've been in the traffic unit. I was the chief deputy of corrections for 10 and a half years. I got some jail experience behind me and investigation stuff. But that is funny you asked that question because I specifically remember a moment in my career of going one of the chief deputies at the time, and it wasn't anybody in my administration or any teammates that I've been involved with, but it was years before that. And I challenged him. I was like, "What do you do? I see all these papers on your desk, but what does this all mean?" And I'll tell you what, the day that I came in and took over the jail as a chief deputy, I felt like a dummy when I asked that question to him because you have no idea until you get into that role. And I explained that to my administrative staff when I appointed him 3 years ago. Is you're going to have growing pains, and it's difficult, it's tough. The there's not only challenges within our own office as far as perspectives and perceptions go, and you're now not making decisions that it just impacts the 6 or 7 people that you might supervise. Now the decision is an entire division, or in my case, 146 employees. It's very global, and you just have to have the understanding you're not going to please everybody, and that's okay. Decisions that we make them for the best interest of the community first. The agency right alongside of that. We don't make them on benefits of individuals because we're public servants. We're not self-servants. So I try to keep that in mind as one of the challenges for me is I don't do it for any piece of myself or any individual. It is 100% the community first, and the agency is right alongside it. So not only do you have challenges locally, but we have challenges legislatively. That has been very challenging as well. I kind of look at that as a negative and a positive, I guess. I always try to see the glasses half full. I'm not a half empty kind of guy. And so I look at these challenges we have legislatively as ways to think outside the box and try to do things differently in law enforcement. I'm not willing to give up on law enforcement or the community in Grant County because of some legislative decisions. I'm not willing to do that. I think there's still effective ways to be a law enforcement officer in Grant County and in the state of Washington. As challenging as it can be, I still think that we can be effective out here, and I think our community deserves it. I don't use the word deserve very often because I think we earn everything we get, but that's one of those things that our community deserves the best that we can give them, and I'm just not willing to give up.
Okay. The thought of like financial aspect of running the sheriff's department, I think from an outsider, and I kind of think this is with a lot of people that go into office. Everybody has their tomahawk out when they're either running for election or they're criticizing. Everyone's got the tomahawk, but when you're actually in it, I feel like they break a pencil and they go, "Here, fix it," and you got this budget, and you're like, "Where's the money coming from?" And you have to make all these sacrifices and movements, and like you said, you're dealing with many levels of I guess authority around you that everything has to kind of mesh together. But I think to have a sheriff's department, there's a cost, a financial cost. Is there any headaches that come along with that, trying to make budgets and how do I please the people or get this? I think what did Moses just get some SWAT truck, or they're working on getting an MRAP or something. I was like, oh, there's $1 million and a lot of money to maintain that, and because we had to maintain them in the military, maybe it costs more to maintain in the military, but I was like, that's a big expense.
Mm-hmm.
How do you finance that and keep those things going?
Yeah, there's definitely financial challenges for sure. I think in Grant County, our county budget as a whole, without having it in front of me, I believe it's about $89 million for the county itself to operate Grant County. With the sheriff's office, between the jail and the sheriff's office, we're about $30 million. So it's a third of the budget for the county is with public safety. So yes, it most definitely brings its challenges. It really does, especially when you want to come in as a new sheriff and make some changes and do things differently, change some culture. It does present challenges, absolutely. And one thing we haven't been over budget. Any budget we control, we've been within our budget, which is great. Um, and the other thing is we've recruiting has been really good for us. Personnel, there's not a lot of discretionary funds within our budget because a lot of it, the majority of it is personnel and benefits. That's wages and benefits are all controlled by bargaining units, which is fine. But that's not really control that we have, other than we know what we're budgeted is how many people we have that challenge of operating within that budget as far as personnel goes. But the nice thing about it is you have a lot of agencies out here now in the state are trying to find ways to get people to come to work at their agencies. And so they're offering signing bonuses. Okay. Well, I don't do that. I don't offer signing bonuses, Rick. I want people to come to work here because they want to work here. And just as a perspective, when I was elected in 2023, we were down 25 employees. I was down 10 on patrol, 14 in corrections, and 1 support staff. In 2024, the commissioners gave me 10 more employees. And so I'm down 35 in a year, which I'm very glad the commissioners gave me those 10. We needed them, but the challenge became to fill them, right? So I believe we had 11 people retire. We had some resignations from people going to other agencies. We had people leave the area. They have family members in different places. People go out of state. We had some recruiting challenges, but I'll tell you, in 3 years, without signing bonuses, I have hired 70 people in 3 years. And what we're hearing from people, because they come, they do ride-alongs, they visit with our employees, they like what we're doing at the sheriff's office. So they want to work here. And like I said, I'm not offering signing bonuses because what we're having in my colleagues throughout the state, they have problems where now people they was giving signing bonuses 3 years ago are now leaving and chasing the next signing bonus.
Yeah.
So we're not doing that. We're trying to build a culture of people here that want to be here, that want to work here, and that's what we're getting. And I think currently I have 2 patrol openings, and I want to say 3 corrections. I think right now, and we're getting ready to open up a new jail this year.
So if you're looking for a job,
yeah, exactly.
And you're loyal to the county.
Absolutely. I mean, we do have openings, and we're always looking for great applicants. We've got some great ones we're interviewing. We do quite a few interviews a week. And
when does a new jail open?
It's supposed to be opening at the end of May of this year. And I cannot believe how fast it's gone. The place is incredible, though. It really is. It's great.
How many underground tunnels do you have there?
I can't tell you that, Donnie.
Oh,
Yeah, I can't tell you that.
dang it. I'm not privy to that information.
Can't sneak me in. If you did, I'd have to stay there.
We're sneaking you in, okay? Sneaking you in for sure.
I remember touring the LA County Jail during that scared straight. I was a little youth, they took a youth group through there, and that was kind of interesting experience. Did you ever have issues? You hire somebody new, and how do you determine if they're a great performer or not?
Yeah, so we have a pretty extensive background process. So of the new deputies we've had, 50% of them have been lateral applicants, which has been great. So they're coming from other agencies. They come work here. So you get a pretty good idea what the work history is by doing the background checks with the other agencies, or even if they're new hires. Our background process is pretty extensive. By state law, we're required to do specific things: polygraph, psychologicals, background, and medical assessments. So it's pretty extensive. We take a lot of pride and a lot of time in those investigations because it's important. And I'll go back to the word deserve. I don't use it very often. Here I am. I think I've used it twice already today.
Unbelievable.
That you get. Our community deserves to have the best service they can get from the people that we're hiring. And that's why we take that background process really serious.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of stereotype, law enforcement is kind of an alpha male kind of role. You got to jump in there, take command. Then a lot of times you don't always know all the details. You're just like, I just got to get control of this quickly. On social media, you see a lot of videos of people challenging law enforcement officers, and I don't know what they call them, constitutional checks, like,
Mhm.
are they overreaching? And looking at both sides, I can see how easy it is for both sides, to challenge an officer, or I don't know if that makes sense. There's like a balance of, coming in with kindness and doing that, but sometimes, you get called for like an assault thing, and you're like, I don't know what I'm walking into.
Mhm.
Just so you know, kindness is the name of one of the guns I carry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Um,
don't ever tell me to kill him with kindness.
Anyway,
I'm gonna do it.
it's interesting to, I guess, observe these, and I try not to take sides because I was like, um, it's just interesting. They knock on your door and they're doing everything they can to entice you out to talk to you, and they're like, "I can come out of the door. I'm sitting." Like I see all this stuff going on. I'm like, what's the balance with that? What's your guys' approach to working with everyday people that because we all kind of trip and fall through life, and then at some point you're going to have a run-in with law enforcement if it's a speeding ticket or you rolled a stop sign or you know you just watching your neighbors fight. At some point you're going to have a run-in. How do you guys try to perform in those situations so it doesn't get like out of control?
Yeah, so we have quite a bit of training that we do for de-escalation things. That's kind of the big thing, the big push right now, which is not a bad thing. It really isn't. De-escalation that basically kind of makes, and I'll paraphrase a little bit, it forces law enforcement to slow down, look at scenes kind of more a bigger picture, more globally. Is the risk? Is it worth the risk of rushing in to apprehend somebody when you can just take time, slow down for a minute, and take some time to maybe de-escalate the situation a little bit more to really try to minimize some of that use of force things that we've had. And our staff has been really good with it. But you think about the sheriff's office as a whole, okay? Just to put it in perspective, we have the fourth largest county in Washington with 2,700 square miles of coverage. We have the most county road miles in the state of Washington. Our county's big. It is huge. And we have commissioned deputies. Right now, we have on the road 58 commissioned deputies right now to cover that much ground. So de-escalation for a sheriff's deputy is pretty important because you may not have backup right away.
Mm.
You may, but you may not. And so sometimes your best weapon is your ability to communicate with people. It really is.
Yeah.
Because everybody's goal at the end of the day for everybody is to go home at night.
Yeah.
To be safe at the end of the day. And I mean that for everybody, not just the deputies, but people involved with the calls that we go to. We want everybody to be as safe as they possibly can. And a lot of times investing some of that de-escalation is a good thing. It really is. Because if our deputies go to a call and their backup's still 20 minutes away, then your best line of defense is to be able to communicate with somebody and have a very nice conversation until your partner gets there to help you out in a situation that you may have to take a tactical advantage of somebody, but you want to be able to build a rapport, de-escalate with that. So that's kind of one of the good things that the patrol tactics and service training that was passed in 2021, honestly. I think it was 21. But it really did. I pushed the de-escalation piece into law enforcement. Sheriff's deputies have been doing it for years. I mean, I remember when I started, there was 4 of us covering the entire county. I mean, your backup wasn't your partner getting there. It was telling somebody, "Hey, could you please back up?" I mean,
Yeah.
that's what it was. It was just a different animal back then, and now people communicate so well that it's been very beneficial for keeping our people as safe as we can. And I mean everybody we interact with, not just our staff, teammates.
Yeah. So the reason I bring it up is, and it wasn't in Washington State. I was in North Las Vegas. I was doing foreclosures at the time, and I was driving with my dump trailer because most of what we did was like property maintenance, locking up houses, hauling trash. Anyway, so I get pulled over by a North Las Vegas officer, and he's like, your tail light's out. And he pulls out his gun, and I'm looking at his barrel, and he pulls me out of the car. And I'm like, yes, sir, no, sir. And I'm like, I'm not trying to ever have confrontation. But I get pulled out of the vehicle and, searched and whatever. And I was like, over a fix-it ticket? I have to stare down the barrel over a fix-it ticket? I was like, it was just kind of weird to me. And I was like, there's just some people out there that that I probably get the thrill out of that, I'm the alpha and, and so, so far, my experience in Moses Lake, because most of my interactions there has been great. If I'm not driving right, usually they're like, "Hey, what's going on? Hey, I notice you're doing this. Fix yourself. Have a nice day." Like, I didn't get a ticket. I was like, "This is great." So I've had a great experience a couple times running into the police here locally, and I was like, they treated me great. And then now that I have Rick's, incidents happen or somebody suspicious comes in and I work with them, they're like, "We need to see camera footage," and I'll be like, "The deal is, I'm happy to show you my camera footage. If we got a guy stealing or doing something crazy or weirdo in the back alley, I'm happy to give it to you." But I was like, the second you see something that reflects back on me, I'm cutting you off. Like, don't hold it against me because, like, I don't know what's on the footage.
Sure.
Let's do it together. But if does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
I'm happy to work with you, but as soon as, like, if it was used against me and I'm like innocently trying to help, I'm gonna cut you off. But so far they've been great. Everyone I've worked with, because they're just trying to find the guy who stole the neighbor's thing. But I hear stories. There's a risk to doing that. Because what if they saw something that "Oh my gosh, someone threw drugs in your trash can." I don't know what. And all of a sudden, I'm guilty of hiding something. I'm like, I don't know. Like, it wasn't me, but anyway, I'm happy to work with everyone. It's just there's always a little bit of a risk by helping. But I was like, if you're cool with me, I'm cool with you. It's kind of been my motto with them.
Yeah, we're pretty fortunate here as far as law enforcement goes. We are so supported by our community that we really are. I see law enforcement not just in Washington, but all along the West Coast, and we are very, very fortunate here in Grant County as far as law enforcement goes. We are extremely supported by our community. We get waved with all fingers typically. We don't. It's not just one finger wave.
It's not a bird.
Yeah, we do that. Everybody uses all five fingers. It's great, But no, we really are. We are so supported here, and it doesn't matter where we go in the community. I know Moses Lake is extremely supportive of their police department and the sheriff's office, and everywhere in Grant County is. We're just blessed to work here as far as the law enforcement profession because, heck, frankly, it's difficult. The state has not made it a pleasant profession to have. I mean, we still rank 51st in the nation as far as law enforcement per capita in the state of Washington. If we were to double our law enforcement population, we would still be last. So it's tough. It's a tough place to be a cop in Washington. It really is. But we're kind of the anomaly in Grant County. I would say there's probably about 5 counties that are still very, very, very supported by their community, and fortunately, we're one of them. Our community here in Grand County is unbelievable, and you talk about a traffic stop for just a second, but I'll tell you that was probably one of the greatest times of my career was being in the traffic unit because 95% of the people you got to talk to were amazing people. They just maybe drove too fast, but they're such great people. So I enjoyed talking to people on traffic stops and having great positive interactions with them.
Watching us cry.
but I did.
You were going 125. I'm going to reduce it to 95.
Yeah. But I did. I liked having the conversations with people because you go for a long time and a lot of times we catch people on their worst day. Right. We're catching them on their worst day. And not everybody is really performing at their highest level of performance on their worst day.
When you see the lights, no, we're like, everyone gets a little nervous.
They do.
I know some people think they get more nervous than others, but I think everyone's a little guarded when that happens. And folks, I'm a terrible driver. I am the worst.
He speeds a lot.
My mind is like elsewhere. I just there's always stuff going on in my head and like the focus on the road. I'm like total ADD squirrel. I'm like, and in the military, I was hauling tanks. I was like, oh my gosh, then I picked like the worst job ever. 240,000 pounds. I'm like, But I'll think and I'll miss all my turns. Every time I'm like, there it is, quarter mile up. I'm gonna get off. Nope, I'll keep driving.
Were you the guy there in the caravan going about 40 miles an hour on the freeway sometimes? Because
Yeah,
I can tell you that.
all the trucks are governed about 50.
Yeah.
So no matter what, you always see them on the road. They're going slow. Yeah. And downhill, we can get like 60. But everything's geared low on military vehicles when you see us convoy around.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've always been a distracted, terrible driver. And I'm like, I probably deserve every ticket I've gotten. So I really appreciate when they're like nice to me. They go, this guy's not a full deck of cards. They give you a warning. So I appreciate that. How about a tough question? So you had a reassignment recently of one of your sheriffs that I guess is running for election, and you're getting criticized for it. His name's Sainsbury. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So Josh and I, and we're still friends. We really are. I mean, I kind of, this is where I'm probably not a very good politician, quite frankly. I love my job as a law enforcement officer, but I'm not willing to let a political position ruin a friendship. I don't work that way. So Josh and I are still friends. We are. It's a 40-year friendship that we've had, so I'm not willing to get rid of that, and I don't believe he is either. So it was a very difficult decision. I mean, it really was. What it comes down to, Rick, to be frank, is when I was elected and I appointed my cabinet of executives, which are all at will positions, right? They're all positions that run and operate at the will of the sheriff. And there were a lot of things, 5 things specifically, that I asked of all my team members, and I asked them face to face and one on one, and they all gave me an affirmative answer that yes, I can abide by that. Let's do this. One of them was being accountable to each other, right? If you have difficult conversations to have with one another, we have to be willing to have that, because it's all about making the team better, making the team stronger. But to have that, you have to have the absolute trust within your team. Trust has got to be the foundation. You have to trust each other, knowing these conversations come from a good place, try to make people better, make the organization better, and things like that. You can't have a fear. I think I mentioned the fear of conflict. We want to make sure that people are okay with having conflict, because a lot of great ideas come from rooms of having good, heated discussions to really flourish ideas and make sure that the best ideas are coming out for the community and the organization. Being able to committing to the organization, and being able to commit as a team, not as an individual. And the results have to be the results that are the best of the interest of the community and the organization. And they have to be results that are focused on the team. They have to be. And everybody gave me that affirmative answer. Absolutely. And so moving into fast forwarding to where we are in the interest of time, but fast forwarding to today in January, when Josh came to me and let me know he was going to run against me, and I told him immediately I wasn't mad at him. That's one of the greatest things about the country we live in. You get to run for political office. You get to do that. And I congratulate him. And he said, yeah, if he wants to advance further in the sheriff's office, he feels like he needs to run for sheriff. And he has a lot of good ideas that he wants to implement. Well, at that point, in the position you're in, an executive level leader in an organization, I don't care if it's the sheriff's office, Microsoft, Rick's Eatery and Entertainment. If you have an executive on your team that has an obligation to bring ideas forward and to watch ideas flourish and to make sure that their ideas in the best interest of the community and the organization, that is an obligation as an executive level leader within an organization. And at the point that you're holding on to ideas for self-gratification, it is not in the best interest of the community and is not in the best interest of the organization anymore. You have an obligation of being at that level of leadership to bring ideas forward, to have discussions on ideas, watch those ideas flourish, watch them come to life, because it may be the key to the best thing in this community. But an individual is holding on to those ideas and not watching them flourish and come to life when they're in a position of obligation, that is no longer in the best interest of the organization and the community. And I can't have somebody on my team that doesn't do that. That violates all 5 of the things that I asked for commitment on. And at that point, they are no longer in it for the team and the organization and the community. And I can't have somebody part of my administrative team that has that outlook. It was tough. It was hard. I hated it. Because he's a friend of mine, and it sucks. I don't know how else to say it. It was horrible. But it was the best decision for the organization, and quite frankly, the best decision for the community, especially if somebody has ideas that might benefit the community and they're not being brought forward. I'm not okay with that, because now you're no longer that public servant. You're turning into a self-servant, and I just can't have that. That's one of those unfortunate, difficult decisions I have to make.
So you probably freed up some of his time where he can pursue this goal.
Maybe
So he's like, well, on the executive level, it might have been, a potential conflict, or is a conflict of interest, however you want to see it, depending on what you know, who you know. But in another aspect, you're like, now you're in a position, you're free to,
Yeah, and I've heard
to do that. But anyway, I have seen some, concerns or criticism on social media about it, so I figured out.
Yeah, and I'm trying to. I really am, because there's a lot of people that have known me for a lot of years around here, and I think anybody that knows me knows I don't have a vindictive bone in my body, quite frankly. And to hear some of the things that I've heard from people that say they want to have all the information and have all of it before they make a decision, and for them to think I would be vindictive, it's a little bit painful. I'm not going to lie, but I understand. When they're only getting a portion of the story. Totally get it. It's one thing I didn't really want to advertise at our platform we have. I think that the information platform that we have for our social media at the sheriff's office is informative information for things I think that are relative to public safety. I don't think that piece was super relevant to public safety, because it starts getting into that political side of things, and I just didn't want. I didn't want to be putting that on our platform that we share vital information about community.
Yeah. So I guess, not saying him, but in this situation, after an election has taken place and an opportunity to on that, whatever your executive committee came again, I mean, is it possible to have a person come back on? I guess the question is the conflict of interest more the election, withholding ideas or whatever, but once the election's over, is that no longer a problem? Or
No, I don't know if I actually have an answer to that question. The reason why is because I don't know the reason why they would withhold the ideas of pushing them forward in the first place. So it really, the whole point of the election, honestly, is really not the core problem. It's the fact of the position that somebody is holding as an executive level leader in an organization has ideas, and they're holding them. And I don't know the reason why, frankly. I guess that would have to be met with me first to find out the reason why. I can't answer. I don't feel like I can answer that, because I don't know the reason why I don't know the foundation.
Yeah. So your executives, whatever, you're saying you need people that are open, honest, because basically it sounds like a lot of tough criticism going on, and people need to be, I guess, big enough to take their lashings, throw out an idea, and have someone just reject it as you hash things out. Anyway, just kind of interesting perspective. So I'm trying to figure it out in my head. So okay, you have a group of guys, you're trying to solve problems. At times you all get together and you hash things out, and there's a high potential for hurt feelings in this group, probably.
But one thing that I made sure that we understood when we had those items I checked off, we started to talk about the conflict, right? One thing I made clear with people is they understood that conflict doesn't mean that you bash each other by any means. We all have to understand that conflict comes from a good place, because I trust you, Rick, knowing you understand I'm coming from a position to try to make you better
Yeah.
or organization better. It's not to knock you down. It's not to diminish your ideas. Your ideas need to be heard. You need to feel valued that your idea was heard, even though me as the sheriff, I may not totally agree with you, but I may take pieces of your idea, right?
Hmm.
I may not totally implement things that you may have on your mind, but those ideas have to be brought forward first for us to be able to have those conversations and that conflicting dialogue to
Yeah.
where you may hear me say something you may not have thought of just because of a different perspective. And that was one thing that I had as well as my cabinet is I don't have people that are like-minded like me. I don't want a whole room full of Joey Crietes. I don't want that.
Yeah.
I want people that think differently. I want people that are over analytical than I am. I'm a relationship type person. Okay. That relationships are very important to me. But some of my team members, they don't feel that way because they think differently. They're more analytical or they have the ability to see things further down the road than I do. That's why everybody's input on those conversations are so valuable because they need to be brought in and valued. And so that conflicting piece, it's not meant and designed as a bashing thing. It's all because we want the community to get the best service we can get out of the sheriff's office. And we know we're trying to make one another better. That's where that foundation of trust has to be.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, because I'm very much an idea person, and those that have kind of watched me present ideas to Moses Lake, some of them don't happen. I think my main goal is just to be heard. And once I'm heard, I'll shut up to a certain degree. It's just getting it out there. In the military, we had some complications, right? We're in the middle of the desert. We have this truck and hauling tanks, and we got 48 wheels on this thing. And at times, if the tractor goes down, we have no way to move the trailer, so we would stack them. But the ramps were so narrow that the wheels, there's 4 wheels and a brake chamber, and anyway, you're like inches, and if it falls off, it breaks the brake chamber, and we're stuck for a while. So it takes about an hour to stack these things, and so I went to my local leadership. I go, what can we do to widen this trailer ramp? I mean, you have 4 inches, 6 inches of this thing, and we can load this thing in 15 minutes. And when things are going boom and lead's flying, you don't want to be out there for 45 minutes. You don't want to be out there for 15 minutes. So I talked to my leadership, and they said I was wasting my time. Eventually, I called the manufacturer and said, hey, we got this problem. And then they're like, what's wrong with our trailers? And it's like, well, when the tractor goes down, we got, they're like, well, where's the crane? I go, we're not at the boat dock, we're in the middle of the desert. But anyway, so I talked to the manufacturer for about 3 weeks. And then 5 years later, I see the new trailer design, and they widened that ramp. And I was like, did I have a piece of that? Because once I gave it to the manufacturer, like, it's not like I'm getting paid for it, but I was like, if it saves lives, it's worth it. So I gave it to them. They're like, we're going to have a contract review in 6 months. And so they were happy to talk to me, a guy on the ground. And now that ramp's that much wider. And I was like, they did it. No way. And that was just me being, because I'm a little entrepreneurial. I just had to get the idea out there, and my leadership wouldn't listen to me, and I kind of went finally to the manufacturer, and then it was done. Mm-hmm. But it was neat to see it kind of 5 years later. Right. When I see the pictures, I was like, no way, they did it. So, I mean, it just is what it is. But yeah, different types of people. And sometimes it's tough to have criticism. I've had ideas for Rick's, and I'll present different things and kind of watch the community. It's like, well, the community support isn't enough to pursue, X throwing. So you're like, what happened to X throwing? What happened to all these things? I was like, well, I presented an idea, and it wasn't.
That reminds me, I was supposed to mention the specials today. Quarter pound cheeseburger and fries today at Rick's for $9.99 all day. Again, get a quarter pounder cheeseburger and fries Whole works for $9.99. And the drink special today is a strawberry smash, just $6. So come on down to Rick's, get yourself something to drink and a nice juicy lunch or dinner. $9.99 for the meal and $6 for the drink.
All right. Let's jump to our last question. 5974.
5974, the dreaded strip your voters' rights away from you bill.
Tell me how you really feel.
That's exactly horrible.
So this bill is basically their ability to appoint versus elect
Ish.
ish.
Ish. So what it does, Senate Bill 5974, it basically is establishing requirements for, excuse me, for elected sheriffs, marshals, and I believe police chiefs as well. So the biggest portion of that is the elected sheriff piece. As we know, our sheriff is the highest executive law enforcement officer in the county, which is elected by the people. We are part of the government. We're not under the government. We're the executive branch of government, not under a mayor. We are under the people who elect us, which is a very vital piece of our organization and of our community. So 5974 wants to establish requirements for people to run for the elected office of sheriff. Again, I am not against having some requirements. I'm not, but what I am against is the people's ability to elect the person they want to elect for that position. To me, that's crazy. And then also to have that body be able to be removed if somebody is decertified without the voice of the people, because there may be a piece of a decertification that the state establishes as grounds for decertification that, quite frankly, the community may not agree with, because it is a board, a training commission board, not an oversight committee that they're being placed to be into. It's a training commission who is now establishing what that panel is to make that decision if somebody is qualified to be sheriff, first of all, or if they're going to be decertified. And if they're going to be decertified, they're out of office and they're out of that position without the voice of the people. So as a voter, because I am a voter as well, I have a big problem with that. If I want to elect somebody into office, there is already a process to remove them, unelect them, get them recalled. It happened in Benton County, so the process works. And one thing we asked legislation when we were over the legislators, we asked them, what's the problem you're trying to fix? Because that's what they tried to tell us. We're just trying to fix problems. Well, they couldn't give us an example of the problem we're trying to fix. So I don't know what problem we're trying to fix here, because the process that we currently have established by the Constitution works. So I'm not in favor of 5974 the way it's written. There are pieces of it that we asked as an organization of the Washington State's Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs. We asked them to veto specific sections of that, and that is the decertification piece. We tried to present an alternative bill that established a portion. If basically there was a decertification done of elected sheriff, it would trigger the recall process. And again, that process is established by the people. The people get to decide if their sheriff is going to be recalled or not a state commission out of Olympia or in South Seattle. So I do have a problem with the bill is written right now, for sure.
Oh, thanks for sharing your perspective on that. I'm just talking about laws and all that as we wrap things up. I was like, there are so many laws and rules. Like, who reads it all? Does anybody really read all that stuff? You might, because you're sheriff now, but like a lot of times you're kind of in like subsects. Like, I'm familiar with this, and this, but like, it seems like it never ends.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. You're right. It doesn't ever end, and not all of them make it through, right? So most of them die on the process, but they resurface in the next session. So this was I remember it. This was a shorter session this year, if I remember.
It was, yes.
A short session. So imagine what the time restraints look like. I mean, it makes Olympia just hectic in a short session anyway, trying to get things done. So you start getting bills like this that are very important in my perspective. Well, it kind of overshadows other ones that you're in the process that may sneak through because there's so much focus on something else. And I don't know the answer which one snuck through and didn't. I have no idea. But I think that happens.
Yeah, this seems, but I guess even with existing rules and laws and regulations and statutes, like there's all this information and it's like, I appreciate those that try to keep it simple, keep it basic, keep it simple to what the average person can understand. But I know it can get complex real fast. You break one law and suddenly it's 10 and you're like, what?
Yeah, it is. It can be very complicated.
Yeah. And they want to stick it to you. They're like, oh, back in 1900, there's this rule. Staring upon a woman on a bridge is a felony. Like, they just start stacking up. Like, I had no idea this existed, but we're still accountable to it in some cases. So I appreciate it when you guys keep it simple and stick with the basics because, like, I probably wake up just breathing. I'm breaking some law. Please don't get me. Anyway, I have no further questions at the moment. Anything you want to do a shout out to the community on, and we'll wrap this up?
Well, I already mentioned about the community. That's I'm going to say it again because I can't say it enough. Is how supportive our community is to not only just the sheriff's office but in law enforcement in general, and it's great. That's probably one of the greatest things that I get. The pleasure I get out of my job is knowing how much this community supports the sheriff's office and all the teammates that I have within the organization. And they're doing a great job when we hear it. I hear it over and over of how people feel like Grant County, they feel like it's a safer place to live now. And that means a lot to me as a sheriff because I've got a ton of teammates that are doing great work out here and they're working their tails off and they're doing a great job. And it is tough with legislation, right? Sometimes we feel like our hands are tied a little bit, but our community is extremely supportive, and I'm forever grateful for that, for sure.
I'm great to hear. Thanks for joining us, Brother Kriete. We'll catch you next time. Thanks, Donnie, for working the sound and all the technical stuff that I know nothing about. I'm Rick, your host, and signing out. Thank you, guys.